Nora had always known misery, but she never imagined it would arrive the moment she gave birth to the child she already loved, more than her own breath. When the baby girl slipped into her trembling arms, tiny and warm and crying softly against her chest, Nora whispered a prayer of thanks, only for the door to slam open and her husband, Glide, to storm in with the fury of a desert storm. He had wanted a son, a legacy, a name carrier for his prideful clan, and seeing a little girl in Nora's arms ignited something dark in him. Before she could shield the newborn, his hand struck her cheek, sending her reeling back onto the cold wooden floor. "A worthless girl," he hissed, pacing like a wounded animal. "You failed me again." She curled around her baby, bracing herself, feeling the sting of each insult more deeply than the bruises forming across her face. Hours later, when the pain finally paused and Clyde stormed out to the saloon, Nora gathered what little courage she had left. She wrapped the child in an old quilt, her own childhood, blanket, and whispered, "Mama's got you. We're leaving tonight." With shaking hands, she pushed open the crooked cabin door and stepped into the bitter snowstorm. Barefoot, exhausted, half-conscious, yet driven by an instinct far stronger than fear. The wind bit her skin like razor shards, but she pressed on, following the distant glow of Lantern Ridge, the only town where she might find help, or at least a place to collapse. The world spun around her, every step heavier than the last, until her legs finally buckled near the old church at the edge of town. She clung to the gate, the baby pressed tightly to her chest, fighting to stay upright. Inside, Pastor Emery glimpsed her through the stained glass window and gasped, rushing toward the doorway. But before he could reach her, the crunch of boots echoed across the snow. Sheriff Elias Granger, known by all as the widowed sheriff, a man who carried grief like a shadow, had been making his rounds when he spotted her, silhouette swaying in the pale moonlight. His heart lurched. He had seen suffering before, but something about the way she clung to that child pierced him to his core. "Ma'am," he called gently, stepping closer, hands raised in calm reassurance. Nora tried to speak, to explain, but the words tangled on her tongue. She only managed, "Please, don't take her," before her knees gave out completely. Elias lunged forward, catching both mother and child before they hit the ground. Her skin was ice. The baby's crying grew weaker by the second. Without hesitation, he scooped them into his arms and hurried toward the parsonage. Nora drifted in and out of consciousness, but she felt warmth, safety, arms that held her gently, so different from the ones that had struck her hours ago. When she woke again, wrapped in blankets beside a crackling fire, Elias sat across from her, tending the baby with a tenderness she didn't expect from a man. "She's a strong little one," he said, offering a small, reassuring smile. Nora's lip quivered. He beat me for birthing a girl." Elias's expression hardened, not with anger at her, but with silent fury toward the world that had failed her. He leaned forward. "You're safe now. As long as I'm breathing, nobody puts a hand on either of you." He didn't know then that those words would bind their fates together. He didn't know that the scars Nora carried, the fears she hid, would awaken something in him he thought had died the day his own wife passed. But in that moment, all he saw was a mother who had survived hell to protect her child, and a baby girl who deserved more than the world had given her so far. And so, as dawn painted the sky with gentle shades of rose and gold, Sheriff Elias Granger made a silent vow, one that would change all three of their lives forever. The morning sunlight spilled through the lace curtains, casting a warm glow over the small room where Nora awoke for the second time. Still disoriented, yet wrapped in a peace she hadn't felt in years. The baby lay sleeping beside her. Tiny fingers curled around a piece of Elias's handkerchief, as if she knew. Instinctively, this house meant safety. Nora took a long, trembling breath, listening to the quiet crackle of the fire downstairs and the distant clinking of dishes. The scent of warm bread drifted through the air. For a brief, precious moment, she allowed herself to imagine a life not ruled by fear. But memories clawed their way back. Clyde's furious shouts, the sting of his blows, the way neighbors turned their eyes away whenever she limped through town. Her stomach tightened. "He'll come for us," she whispered to herself. "He always comes." When she finally stepped downstairs, she found Elias in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up preparing breakfast, with the awkward determination of a man who hadn't cooked for another soul since losing his wife. He turned the moment he heard her footsteps. "You should be resting," he said softly, but Nora shook her head, clutching the worn railing for support. "I can't stay here. He'll hurt you. He'll hurt anyone who tries to help me." Elias set the skillet down and walked toward her slowly, his voice steady as a rock. "Nora, I buried a woman I loved. I've faced guns, gangs, and graves. I fear no man who lifts his hand against a woman." His words hit her with unexpected warmth. He wasn't speaking with bravado, he meant every syllable, yet she still trembled. "I don't want to bring trouble to your door." "Trouble already came," he replied, glancing at the bruises she tried to hide. "And I intend to end it." He sat her gently in a chair and pushed a plate toward her. "Eat, you both need your strength." She watched him move across the room with slow, heavy steps. He carried his own grief. She could see it in his eyes, in the way he hesitated sometimes, staring at the empty place where his wife once sat. And yet, despite his own shattered heart, he protected her, sheltered her, cared for a child who wasn't his. When the town gossip finally caught the scent of scandal, an abused woman hiding in the sheriff's home, murmurs spread faster than wildfire. Some people whispered sympathy, others judgment, but Elias ignored them all. He took Nora to the doctor, filed charges, and warned Clyde in a voice cold enough to freeze gunpowder. "If you come near her again, you'll answer to me." But Clyde was a cowardly man, those most violent often are, and though he spat threats, he kept his distance, knowing the sheriff's resolve was iron. Weeks passed, and slowly Nora began to heal. Elias helped her learn to walk outside without flinching, helped her baby girl, whom she named Grace, grow strong, and taught Nora that not all men use their hands for harm. Sometimes they use them to build, to protect, to lift others out of darkness. They grew close, first as protector and protected, then as two lonely souls, finding warmth in each other's presence. The townsfolk noticed the way Nora's eyes softened when Elias entered a room, or the way he'd pause whatever he was doing to make Grace laugh. One evening, snowflakes drifted past the window as Nora stood in the doorway, watching him carve a small wooden toy for Grace. He looked up, catching her gaze, and something unspoken passed between them, something warm, gentle and honest. "Why are you doing all this?" she finally asked. "For me and my baby." Elias set the carving down and walked toward her with quiet steps. "Because no one saved my wife when she needed help," he said, voice rough with emotion. "Because no woman should suffer alone. Because Grace deserves a life filled with love. And because, when I look at you, Nora, I see someone who survived the fire instead of burning in it." Her breath caught, tears rising in her eyes. She had never been valued, never been cherished, never been looked at the way he looked at her now, with respect, not ownership, with admiration, not expectation. That night, as Grace slept peacefully in a cradle, Elias refurbished himself. Nora finally allowed herself to hope for a future, one where fear was a memory, not a cage. A future where she wasn't just surviving, but living. And as the firelight danced across the room, she whispered a prayer that whatever path lay ahead, Elias would walk it with them. Because sometimes family isn't the one you're born into, sometimes it's the one brave enough to take you in when the world turns its back. And the widowed sheriff had done exactly that. If you want more stories like this, full of emotion, suspense, and heart, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these powerful stories coming.